She said I'd never become anything. 10 years later, she walked into my office as my new boss. But she had no idea what I built since the day she left. Not a clue. Her name was Madison Green, my ex. The woman who once looked me dead in the eye and said, "You'll never become anything real, Josh. I need someone ambitious. Someone already there." And now, 10 years later, she walked through the glass doors of our office, head high, heels sharp, looking like she had just stepped out of a glossy leadership magazine. Introduced to the team as the new director. You ever see a ghost in daylight? That was the only way I could describe it. My boss. I could feel my chest tighten, but I kept my expression still. Calm. Like her presence did not split me wide open from the inside. But it did. Because back then, her words hit like a freight train. I had just gotten laid off from my second job, struggling to piece together something resembling a future. She told me I was a good guy, but not going anywhere. Said I had too many dreams and not enough drive. That I was stuck while she was ascending. She wanted someone established. I was nodded. I never forgot that moment. Standing outside a coffee shop in the cold, watching her walk away in a tailored coat I helped pay for, feeling like the air had been punched out of my lungs. And now? Now she was standing 5 feet from my desk, smiling at the department like she had not once gutted me with a sentence. "Let's make great things happen," she said with that same confident tone I used to find magnetic. Her eyes scanned the room casually. Then they landed on me. For a split second, her mouth twitched. I do not know if it was shock, recognition, or regret. But she blinked, masked it, and moved on, as if I was just another face in the crowd. And maybe that is what stung the most. Because I was not the same man she left. And she was about to find that out. But not in the way she expected. Not with anger. Not with revenge. No. I had done my time. Fought my battles in silence. Built something real while no one was watching. And the story? It does not start with her walking in. It starts with everything that came before she did. Let me take you back to the day she walked away, and why that moment lit a fire I never let go out. It was one of those gray afternoons where the sky looks like wet concrete, and you just know the day is not getting better. We were standing outside that overpriced cafe she liked downtown. I still remember the chip blue paint on the bench I leaned against, the smell of roasted beans I could never afford. Madison had her arms crossed, wearing that burgundy coat I bought her last Christmas. She would not sit. Said she did not want to drag this out. That should have been my first clue. Her voice was sharp, clipped, like she was reading from a memo. She told me she had been thinking about our relationship, that she needed someone further along. Then came the sentence that still buzzes in my skull like static on a dead radio. "You're not going anywhere, Josh. You're just stuck. You've got dreams, but no direction." She said I was too soft, too comfortable playing small, that she wanted a man who had arrived, not one still figuring it out. I asked if that meant I was holding her back. She didn't even deny it. Honestly, I need someone more ambitious, more put together. I remember staring at her shoes. Leather heels, barely scuffed, polished, confident. Everything I was not. She walked away before I could say much. That was her style. Always had a clean exit strategy. I stood there in the cold, pretending it didn't matter, but my hands were shaking. And not from the wind. That night, I sat in my one-bedroom apartment, staring at the ceiling while the radiator clicked like a metronome for failure. I had no job, no money, no backup plan, just a hard truth in my chest. She was right. But that is where it changed. I did not call her. I did not chase her. I shut off my phone and pulled out an old legal pad. I wrote down everything I hated about myself, then flipped the page and listed what I wanted to become. Not for her. Not to prove anything. Because something in me cracked open that day. And I was done playing small. The years that followed were not some quick rise to glory. They were brutal. I worked maintenance at night and learned to code during the day. Taught myself until my eyes hurt. Failed 2 businesses. Burned through my savings twice. Slept in my car for a week after my roommate bailed and the landlord changed the locks. But I kept building. Step by step, mistake by mistake. I got better. Sharper. Focused. And people started noticing. Small wins at first. A freelance project here. A glowing review there. Then a startup hired me to fix their back-end mess. That was my break. Within 5 years, I was leading a team. And now? I run ops at one of the top firms in the region. Quietly. Without flash. And that is what makes this next part so wild. Because 2 days before Madison showed up, I got a call from a recruiter. They mentioned a restructuring. Said someone new would be brought in to shake things up. I just never thought it would be her. And what I definitely did not expect was the secret she brought with her. The next morning, the office felt colder. Not in temperature, just in energy. Everyone was buzzing about the new leadership. People always pretend to be excited about change, but mostly they are scared. I had seen this play out before. I kept my routine tight, got in early, reviewed status reports, responded to client issues, stayed in my lane. That was the rule. Move sharp, speak soft, deliver results. At 9:15 on the dot, Madison walked in with the senior execs. She was flanked by 2 VPs and someone from corporate HR who always looked like she chewed glass for breakfast. I sat at the head of my team's pod, pretending to scroll through a dashboard I had already triple-checked. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but I could feel her eyes before I saw her face. She stopped 2 feet from my desk. "Josh," she said. Her voice was smooth, but I caught the pause, just long enough to mean something. My name felt like it was dipped in old memories. I stood, straightened my shoulders. Not rushed, not smug, just steady. "Director Green," I said, keeping my voice calm. I looked her straight in the eye. For a split second, her face dropped the professional mask. Her eyes flickered, recognition, regret, something she did not want anyone else to see. Then she blinked it away and gave a stiff nod. "We will talk later," she said. Not a request. An order. I smiled, just barely. "Of course." She moved on without another word. My team looked confused. A few glanced at me, but no one asked anything. They had no idea what had just passed between us. No idea how much history lived inside those 2 seconds. At lunch, I sat alone like I usually do. Not antisocial, just focused. But halfway through my sandwich, I saw her reflection in the glass door of the break room. She came in holding a protein shake and something that looked too expensive to be called a salad. I was mid-bite when she stopped at my table. "Can we talk?" she asked, quiet. I nodded and stood. She led me to the small conference room at the end of the hallway, the one people use for phone interviews and private meltdowns. She shut the door, turned to face me. "I did not know you worked here," she said. I shrugged. "I do." There was a long silence. She looked at me like she was trying to match this version of me to the one she left behind. "You look different," she finally said. I did not reply. She rubbed her hands together, eyes darting like she was choosing her next words carefully. "This is awkward," she said, and then added, "for me." I let that hang in the air. She finally looked up, meeting my eyes. And for the first time since she walked back into my life, I saw it. Not arrogance, not superiority, uncertainty. Then she said something that hit like a freight train, only not in the way I expected. "I need your help." She said it again, slower this time. "I need your help. Now." A younger version of me, fresh from that breakup, raw and bitter, might have laughed. Might have thrown her words back at her. What happened to needing someone more put together? But I had buried that guy years ago. Instead, I just waited. Let the silence stretch. She cleared her throat. "There are some internal issues in the department. Legacy contracts. Outdated systems. The previous director left a mess." I nodded slowly. "And you want me to clean it up?" She hesitated. "I know you have pull here. Your team respects you. The execs trust your judgment. If we are going to turn this around, I need someone who already knows where the bones are buried." There it was. She was not here to rub it in. She was here to survive. This was not the same Madison who walked away from me without looking back. This was a version I had never seen before, controlled, but cracking a little around the edges. I leaned against the glass wall and crossed my arms. "You have done your research?" She nodded. "I saw your name in the org chart late last week. I honestly thought it was a coincidence, until I asked around. And when you realized it was me?" Another pause. I did not know what to think. Part of me hoped it was not. Another part was curious. Her voice trailed off. I caught something in her expression then, like she was remembering who I used to be. Like maybe the man in front of her now did not match the one she left on a cold sidewalk 10 years ago. But I was not going to give her the reaction she was looking for. "I will help you," I said, "because it is my job. Not because of the past." A flicker of something crossed her face. Maybe guilt. Maybe relief. It was hard to tell. She nodded and straightened her blazer, like she needed to reassemble her armor. "I appreciate that. I will loop you in on the restructure plan tomorrow." She turned to leave, then paused with her hand on the door. "One more thing," she said without looking back. "You are not who I expected to find here." Then she walked out. I stayed there for a while, just breathing in the weight of what had happened. She had come in with power, with a title, but she had also come in with a problem she could not fix without me. And maybe, just maybe, she realized she never really knew who I was to begin with. But here is the twist. She was not the only one who had returned with baggage. Because the reason I took this job in the first place, the real reason, was not as clean as I liked to pretend. And it was about to resurface. Everyone at the office assumed I took the job for the title. Senior Ops Manager. Decent pay, flexible hours, big client list. But that was not the truth. Not really. The truth was messier. About 3 months before Madison ever walked back into my life, I got a call from a guy I used to know, Nathan. He was running his own firm now, high-level consulting. Said there was a company bleeding money and no one could figure out why. Legacy contracts, internal sabotage, you name it. He said they needed someone who could move quietly. Someone who knew how to untangle chaos from the inside. He offered me triple what I made at the time. All off the books? A temporary ghost hire through a shell company. You find the leak, he said, and we both win. I said no at first. But then he dropped the name of the firm, Atherton & Key. That was the company Madison's fiancé used to work for, the same guy she dumped me for a year after we broke up. I had not heard his name in almost a decade, but it still lit something ugly in my chest. I told Nathan I would think about it. Then I spent that whole night reading up on Atherton. I saw the headlines, the layoffs, the failed mergers. Something had gone seriously sideways over the last year. What he did not tell me, but what I found out later, was that the guy Madison left me for. He had tanked a deal worth millions. Got booted. Quietly. No scandal, no press release. Just gone. I took the job the next morning, and I buried myself in the work. Not out of spite, but because I saw something deeper. Something broken in this company that reminded me of myself back when I had nothing. I wanted to fix it. Prove that I could walk into a fire and rebuild something better. And now, here she was, Madison, hired to manage the fallout of a disaster I had already been halfway through investigating. That was no coincidence. It meant someone at the top brought her in as a cover. A distraction. A familiar face with a sharp resume, meant to draw attention away from the mess underneath. They did not expect me to still be here. And now? I had a choice to make. I could expose everything. Drop the data I had gathered, show the execs the ugly truth, and watch it all implode, with her standing right in the middle of it. Or, I could play it slower. Let her keep trying to rebuild, while I finished pulling the real strings in the background. But either way, one thing was certain now. She was not in charge. But what she didn't know, what no one knew, was that I hadn't ended up here by accident. I was. By the end of the week, things had shifted. Madison had started calling quick team huddles, trying to understand the workflow, the players, the hidden power lines inside the department. She was sharp, no doubt. The same way she used to be in college group projects, organizing chaos with color-coded precision. But what she didn't know was that half the processes she was uncovering, I had already mapped those out. Quietly. Weeks before she got there, I watched as she pored over data sheets, frowned at vendor contracts, and stayed late running audits. I almost admired it, almost. But then I saw her in the server room one night after hours, phone pressed to her ear, whispering just loud enough that I could catch a few words from around the corner. He's still here? Yeah, that Josh. A pause. No. Totally different now. You should have seen him. It's like he... She turned suddenly. Saw me standing by the door. Her mouth snapped shut. Her eyes wide for a beat too long. You all right? I asked. She nodded, fast. Too fast. Yeah, just wrapping up. I tilted my head. Working late every night. You trying to impress someone? She let out a breath that was almost a laugh, but not quite. Trying to clean up a mess someone else left. She did not know I was the one who had already found the leak. She was chasing ghosts while I was holding the map. And still, part of me wondered, was she protecting someone? Maybe whoever she had been talking to on the phone. The next day, I found a file on the shared drive. A private folder that had somehow been made public for just a few minutes. Sloppy mistake. Inside it was a memo she had drafted, one not meant to be sent yet. It read, Note, Joshua Carter appears to hold significant informal influence. Not in title, but in culture. May need to reassess team leadership hierarchy. There it was. The confirmation I did not need, but took anyway. She had started to see it. That I was not just another name on the roster. That the ground under her feet was not as stable as she thought. And the kicker? The person she had been talking to on the phone? It was not her old boss. It was her husband. The one she left me for. The guy who torched this company's last major account before vanishing into private consulting. She was not just here to fix the place. She was here to cover for him. And now I had her cornered. The question was, what would I do with that? Because part of me still remembered her walking away all those years ago. And the other part? The other part had just started to wonder if she ever truly left. It was after hours again. Office mostly empty. The lights buzzed with that soft hum you only notice when everything else goes quiet. I was reviewing logs on a secure terminal when I heard the knock. Soft. Hesitant. I looked up. Madison stood in the doorway. No clipboard. No blazer. Just her, exhausted, hair pulled back, shadows under her eyes. Got a minute? She asked. I nodded once. She stepped in, closed the door, and leaned against it like she needed something solid behind her just to stay upright. I know about the memo, I said before she could speak. Her eyes flinched. She looked like someone bracing for a hit. I figured you would, she replied quietly. We just stood there, silence like a wall between us. And then she said something that hit deeper than I expected. I did not come here for you. I did not come here to gloat or fix anything personal. I was desperate. That caught me off guard. She never used to use that word. I thought I could handle this, she said, her voice cracking slightly. Thought I could spin it, fix it, keep everything under control. But the mess is bigger than they told me. I raised an eyebrow. The mess? Or the cover-up? She did not answer right away. Just looked at me with something close to shame in her eyes. It was supposed to be a clean PR sweep, she finally admitted. Come in, restructure the team, make it look like we were turning the ship around. My husband, he asked me to do it. Said it was just a favor. He made it sound like a temporary thing. I felt my stomach turn. So you're not here to lead. You're here to rewrite history. She nodded slowly. At first, yes. And then, her voice dropped to a whisper. But then I saw you. My body stiffened. I did not recognize you right away, she said, staring at the floor now. Not because your face changed, but because your presence did. You used to shrink in rooms like this, Josh. You used to second-guess every decision. You were so afraid of being wrong. I stayed quiet. Let her talk. But now, you do not flinch. People listen when you speak. You walk like you belong. Her voice broke a little, and I hated that I missed it. That last sentence hung in the air, raw and fragile. She finally looked up. I thought I knew you. Back then, I mean. But maybe I only saw the parts one wanted to see, or the ones I thought I could mold. I did not move. I did not say anything clever or cruel. I just let her talk. And then she asked me the one question I had not expected. Did I break something in you that night? I thought about it. Thought about the cold sidewalk, the job losses, the cheap apartment, the hunger, the years of silence and grind and bloodshot-eyed determination. And then I looked her straight in the eye. You didn't break me, Madison, I said. You lit the fuse. For a long time, neither of us spoke. And maybe that was the most honest we had ever been with each other. But what she did not know, what I had not told anyone, was that the data I had been collecting. It pointed straight to a file with her name on it. She was not just cleaning up after her husband. She was tangled in it, too. And time was running out. I stared at the screen for a long time that night. The folder had been buried deep inside a mislabeled archive server, disguised as an old vendor contract backup. But the naming convention was familiar. I had seen it before, back when I started tracing irregularities in the approval logs. Inside were 6 documents, all linked to inflated vendor payouts, and all signed off by Madison Green. At first, I thought maybe she had just missed something, signed off without digging too deep. That happened more often than people admitted. But the timestamps? They told a different story. She had logged in outside business hours, approved invoices within minutes of submission. And the biggest one? It had been routed through a shell company I had already flagged, one tied directly to the same consultant group her husband used to work for. This was not sloppiness. This was calculated. I sat back in my chair, the city lights flickering outside the window like a warning. Everything inside me wanted to feel triumphant. 10 years ago, she looked me in the eye and said I would never be anything. Now I held the key to her downfall. I could go to the board, drop the files, watch the fallout unfold. It would be clean, justified, deserved. And yet, I hesitated. Because what if I had been wrong? What if she was not here to cover it up? What if she was trying to fix it, clean it before it reached the surface? That night in the server room, the look in her eyes, the things she said, it did not feel like the Madison I used to know. It felt like someone drowning and too proud to scream. I closed the laptop, Sat in silence for a long time. A storm was coming. That much I knew. The only question now was whether I wanted to stand at the center of it or steer it toward someone else. The next morning, I walked into the office early and left an envelope on Madison's desk. Inside was a copy of the file, with one note scribbled across the top. Clean this up. Quietly. You get one chance. When she came in and found it, I was already gone. I did not wait to see her reaction. I did not want to see fear or relief. Because this was not about her anymore. This was about me deciding who I wanted to be, now that I finally had the power to choose. But I will admit this much. Part of me wanted to know if she would run or fight. What I did not expect was who else had been watching all along. 2 days passed. Madison did not mention the envelope. Not a glance. Not a shift in tone. But she looked tired. That kind of tired you cannot fake. Her pace slowed. Her voice dropped. She was unraveling, but holding it together just enough to fool the room. And then, on Friday morning, he showed up. Nobody knew who he was at first. Just a man in a gray suit. Crisp. Expressionless. He walked past reception without a badge and went straight into the executive wing like he owned the place. 10 minutes later, I got the call. Josh Carter, please report to conference room 4C. My stomach dropped. When I stepped inside, Madison was already there. Pale. Eyes red like she had not slept. Across the table sat the man in the gray suit. He folded his hands and spoke without looking up. Mr. Carter, I am Matthew Lennox. Internal audit. He said it like a hammer falling. Madison's hand was clenched around a folder. Not mine. Hers. Lennox gestured toward the seat across from him. Let us talk about the green light vendor trail and the approval chain. My heart pounded, but I kept my face still. Of course. He tapped the folder in front of him. We have been following this thread for 3 months, he said. Unauthorized payouts. Shell companies. Ghost invoices. He glanced at Madison. And a pattern of approvals tied to a specific user ID. Ms. Green's. Madison did not flinch. I did not create the trail. I inherited it. And I tried to stop it. You approved the invoices, Lennox said flatly. I had to, she replied. There were threats. I was trying to buy time. He turned to me. Mr. Carter, you submitted a risk report last month, but only flagged suspicious activity. You left out the name tied to it. I nodded slowly, because I was not sure who was protecting whom. His eyes narrowed. And are you sure now? I looked at Madison. Something in her was different now. No pride. No pretense. Just stripped down. She was not acting anymore. I turned back to Lennox. I am sure she is not the one behind it, I said. He sat back, studied me. Then he pulled out a separate file. I believe you, he said, because we already found the source. He slid the document across the table. And there it was. The name on the account. Jason Ward. Her husband. The man she left me for. The man who had used her access, used her trust, to bury his crimes behind her title. Madison covered her mouth. Her shoulders collapsed. He told me it was temporary, she whispered. That it was for the company. That I was helping him fix something. Lennox stood. He's already being dealt with. But your role here? That is still being reviewed. He turned to me. We will need your report finalized by Monday. Include everything. He walked out without waiting for a response. The door clicked shut. And for the first time in years, it was just the two of us. No lies. No armor. Just silence. And then she asked me a question so small I almost missed it. Why did you not burn me when you had the chance? I looked at her. Really looked. And I said what I meant. Because I finally understand what you meant when you said I was not enough. She blinked, caught off guard. You were right, I said. Back then I wasn't. But now, I do not need to prove that to you anymore. I stood, grabbed my folder, and turned toward the door. And before I left, I said one last thing. You're not my ghost anymore. I did not go in Monday morning. I sent my report from home, logged out of the company portal, and never logged back in. A week later, HR called to say they were offering me a transition package, whatever that meant. Lennox had filed a commendation. Said my discretion and professionalism prevented what could have been a public scandal. They said I was welcome back anytime. I said thank you and never responded again. Not because I was angry, but because I had finally closed that chapter, for real this time. Madison, she stayed. At least for now. The board put her on some kind of probation, pending review. But I heard through the grapevine that she had been quiet. Focused. Different. Like something cracked open that could not be closed. I did not follow up. I did not need to. A few nights later, I found myself walking past the old cafe downtown, the one where she ended things all those years ago. Same chipped blue bench out front. Same burnt coffee smell drifting into the cold. I stopped for a second, looked through the window. New faces now. Young couple laughing over drinks, the way we used to. The guy had a laptop open, probably chasing something that feels impossible, but just might be worth it. I smiled, kept walking. Because the thing is, people think closure comes with some big scene. One last conversation. A final gotcha. But that is not real. Closure is waking up one morning and realizing that the weight you carried for years, it is not yours anymore. It is gone. Because somewhere along the way, I stopped living in reaction to what she said. I became the man I needed to be, not for her, not for revenge, but because I decided I was worth building. So no, I did not need her apology. I did not need her regret. I did not need her to look at me now and finally see my value. Because I already did. And that was the win. I walked away without looking back, because I was not proving her wrong anymore. I had already proven myself right.